Welcome back to another week of PSN Sports Network with Artie and Nikita. I am Brock Bennett, and guys, we are almost done with the high school playoffs here, going into the semifinal rounds. And Nikita, your thoughts on these matchups coming up?
Yeah, a lot of undefeateds taking on a lot of undefeateds. You got some serious head-to-head matchups here, Artie, and some big-time players in these games.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Something's got to give. I mean, some of these teams that are 13, 14-0, somebody's going to have to lose.
Yeah, and for those that do lose, it's going to be a bad taste in their mouth because they've yet to taste the defeat this year.
Well, fellas, wasting no time, let's jump right into it. Some of our semifinal games this week. Looking at 6A right now, going to the south of the bracket. You got Saraland playing Spanish Fort, and then again on the north side, you've got Florence going to Clay Chalkville. The two teams winning are moving on to the state title game in Auburn. Nikita, just out of the south region, who do you like? And also out of the north region, who do you like?
Well, at the beginning of the playoffs, I had Spanish Fort going to the finals, but for some reason this week, my gut tells me already to take Saraland in a upset of maximum proportions here.
It's not a bad pick. I mean, you look at the matchup they had in the regular season, and it was extremely difficult for the Toros. They only won 21-13, so, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but I think I'm going to stick with Spanish Fort myself.
Well, moving to the north, though, this pick has stayed true the whole time. Clay Chalkville is just a massive, nasty football team. They will beat you down defensively. They will run over you offensively, and it's just too much for Florence to handle.
Well, if you like points, I mean, this game is definitely for you. I mean, both of these teams can really get after it as far as putting points up. But I like Clay Chalkville to go ahead and probably win a track meet over Florence.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say, Clay Chalkville's just a dominating team, and then they'll be in Auburn come next week.
Well, bouncing around here, heading to 3A. Artie, Madison Academy has to go to Glencoe, and then you got Gordo going to Dale County. Can Madison County beat Glencoe this week and make it to Auburn for the state title in 3A? And what about Dale County? They keep going, but Gordo's in their way. Can they stop Gordo at home and get that win to move to Auburn?
Well, in the South, this is kind of having to reconfigure my bracket a little bit because I actually had Gordo going out last week, but they were able to get by Op. So that sets up, like you say, a Gordo versus Dale County matchup. And Dale County has been extremely solid and just buzzsawing their way through the playoffs. And I don't know. I kind of like them to go ahead and do it again to Gordo.
Yeah, Gordo, I don't know if they caught Op off balance last week or if Op just wasn't as good as what we thought they were, but me and Artie both had Op going into this next round. But just Dale County, just 13-0, just dominating people they come in contact with, and I don't believe Gordo has the answer, especially since it's going to be at Dale County.
Well, as far as Dale County goes, me and you both had our concerns about their schedule. Maybe they had played a little bit too soft a schedule, and we just weren't really sold on them. But, I mean, you look at what they've done in the playoffs, and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, they've just been ripping through people and just going on about their way like they have all year, and so I don't think the schedule's as weak as what we thought. They're just that good a team, and they're able just to whip up on people.
And just whoever they play, they just take that business mentality of just going out there and taking care of them. But looking in the North, this is a really interesting matchup because, last year was a really good game between these two, and I expect nothing less this year. Coach Osment's got the Jackets playing well, and, you got the running back Osment, and you got the quarterback Dylan Stone, both really playing well, really running the ball well, and Stone can throw it too. I mean, they're a run first team, but he can hurt you throwing the ball too. And then on the other hand, you got I guess probably the best tandem in the state of Malik Miller and Kerryon Johnson. But just looking at this matchup, can Glencoe get over the hump? They can, but I don't know. I just have a hard time betting against the Stangs on this one.
Well, Glencoe has the ability to run the ball, control the clock, to just change the whole aspect of the game. But at the same time, Madison Academy has those kind of athletes that can just purely out-dominate you. And I'm with you, Artie. I just don't think Glencoe has an answer, and I think Madison Academy goes to the state finals once again looking for that 3A state championship.
Well, you made a good point there as far as them being able to run the ball. Maybe they're able to control the clock and keep, the Mustangs off the field and shorten the game, and maybe that, really works well to their favor.
Well, they are extremely physical on the O-line, and they just take over ball games when they need to slow down the pace. So Madison Academy will have to overcome a very powerful O-line and a very powerful running back in Thomas Osmond. I mean, you're talking about a kid that's somewhere around the neighborhood of 200 pounds and like 6 foot tall. So he's going to be a load coming through the line. But also, like you say, Malik Miller, he's, 220?
220.
And then you got Carry On's like 190. So
Carry On's actually 200 flat.
Well, 200 flat. So you got 2 or 3 big running backs that's just going to have to get through the line the best they can. And both defenses have been playing extremely well this year. So it's just going to be a battle from the word go, and I hope they do not disappoint in this game.
Well, the battle of the trenches really will be even, I do believe, because, Glencoe, as you say, very physical, just smash mouth and just looking to pancake you. And then on the other hand, you got the Mustangs with usually a very big, not necessarily the most agile, but just a big offensive line. And, it should be a very interesting matchup.
Exactly.
Well, Nikita, what about the 4A matchup? You got Leeds going to UMS Wright, and you've got Deshler going to Cordova. A good Leeds team and a good Deshler team. Can they get it done?
Well, when UMS Wright is that storied 4A team that everybody hears about in the South, and Leeds is the team that's come on in the past few years and just utterly dominated 4A. And, Leeds has got those marquee wins this year, and they're having to travel to UMS Wright, and I just cannot go against them, Artie. I have to go with the Green Wave.
I would have to agree with you on that. I think that's a pretty good pick because Trey Nation, I believe this young man is going to be determined to go ahead and get the Green Wave on to the next round. UMS Wright's going to give him a fight. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the night, I do like Leeds. And then, looking up to the north, you got this, I would have to say probably the best story going. I mean, there's just no other way to look at it. You lose your coach and just able to rally behind that and win for him and keep it going in Deshler. And then this Cordova team, I mean, at some point before the playoffs even started, they were potentially a 3 seed at one point, the way the thing could have worked out. But now all of a sudden here they are one step away from Auburn. It's a pretty amazing story.
Yeah, Deshler was rolling, even before tragedy struck, and this is the team I believe that will be in Auburn next week. Even though Cordova has played extremely well, they overcome a Haleyville team that they couldn't beat in the regular season last week, and, it's going to be a really good ball game at Cordova, but once again, I like Deshler just to take it on and play Leeds in the final.
Well, I know I've kind of doubted Deshler the last few weeks. I believe I picked against them maybe 2 or 3 straight weeks. I'm not sure about that, but at least twice. But anyways, I kind of like the whole idea of Deshler go ahead and winning this game. I think it'll be tight, but I think they'll pull it out.
And headed up to 1A now. You have Maplesville going to Billingsley. You have Marion County going to Hubbardsville. Probably 2 of the best matches, for the semifinals in 1A, are just out of any classification this week. Nikita, 2 good matchups. Who is the best team to move on?
Well, when you look at this North matchup, you got Hubbardsville, who we knew would be here. I've had them here since day one. But the other side, you have a Marion County team that's pretty much come out of nowhere. I mean, they were, I believe, a 3 seed coming in, traveled the first round to Spring Garden, and then they had to take on a Donahoe team that we thought was just absolutely powerful, just couldn't be beat. And then somehow they gutted out a win and beat Donahoe, and then they turned around and beat a red-hot Cedar Bluff team that was averaging, 45, 50 points a game through the playoffs, and here they are battling Hubbardsville. But, Artie, I don't know about you, but I like Hubbardsville to go on to the final.
Well, first, let me say, Marion County really kind of shocked me to be able to, I guess, contain Cedar Bluff the way they did last week. But looking at this matchup between them and Hubbardsville, look back at the regular season, Hubbardsville won, I believe, 56-30, somewhere in there. Maybe that mental gap's a little bit too much to overcome, and plus it's at Hubbardsville. And as I've said from the first week of the playoffs, I like Hubbardsville to get to Auburn, and I'm going to stick with that.
Well, I don't know how good Marion County's defense is, but it's going to have to be really good to contain Hubbardsville and keep them out of the end zone. But looking at Maplesville and Billingsley, I had Brantley and Maplesville at this point.
I did also
last week, but or a couple weeks ago. But after we got to looking at the brackets, I went back and changed my pick to Billingsley, and here they are. They got Maplesville coming in to their home turf this week. Even though they beat Brantley, and Brantley's a really good team, and Billingsley is obviously a really good team, it's hard to go against Maplesville and that storied 1A South team.
Well, the whole Billingsley over Brantley to some, I guess, was a huge shocker to myself. I come very close to picking Billingsley. I wasn't that surprised that they were able to knock off Brantley. But looking at this game, as I've said since day one also, Maplesville is just too much, and I like them to go ahead and finish out this thing and take it on to Auburn.
And bouncing around down to 5A, in the south part, it's Jackson going to St. Paul's, pretty good team in St. Paul's. And in the north, you got a Madison County team going to Pleasant Grove, two pretty good, decent teams right there. Already coming out of the south and north, who's your pick to go to Auburn?
Well, looking up at the south, I think this is going to be a really good game. Some people might not think so. They think St. Paul's may be unbeatable or whatever, but I really like this Jackson team. But, even though I do like them, I'm going to go ahead and pick St. Paul's. I think they're just a little too good for them.
Yeah, like you say, really good ball game, really close matchup, but it's at St. Paul's, and St. Paul's is really good at home. So there's no doubt in my mind that St. Paul's will be traveling on next week.
And then if you look up to the north, once again, I think this will be another really close game. Two teams very similar in talent and ability. And, Pleasant Grove coming off a big win over Guntersville, which is a team that Madison County actually lost to in the regular season. But, on the other hand, Madison County's coming off a big win over a really good East Limestone team. So both are riding high. But I like Madison County actually go into Pleasant Grove and get the win.
Well, you got two teams here that nobody even thought would make it past probably round number 2. We had...
Well, on a side note, neither one of these teams have ever made it this far.
Well, I don't know about you, Artie, but I had Guntersville playing East Limestone at this point.
I did also.
And I had East Limestone going to the finals, but Madison County kind of threw the monkey wrench in there, so...
Well, Pleasant Grove didn't help the process either, but...
And shut out a pretty good Guntersville team last week, and Madison County held East Limestone to a whopping 7 points.
That's
so,
that's where Pleasant Grove actually shut out Guntersville. So.
Exactly, and shut down Mr. Bentley, as we have been talking about all year long.
Very much
so. Really good running back, one of the best in the state, and they just flat shut him down. And since Pleasant Grove is back at home this week, I'm going to give them the slight edge over the Tigers, and I picked Pleasant Grove to go on to the 5A state finals.
And looking at our last classification for the semifinals in 2A, the south part, you have Washington County traveling to Elba, and out of the north, the only team in our coverage area that is still alive is the Fife Red Devils. They beat Tanner last week, and they are at home, or I should say back at home, against Ramburn. Nikita in the north, Ramburn and Fife, both are undefeated. But, just saying it's Fife. It's at Fife. you know, the only team left around here for us that we know pretty well. What's the story on them? Can they get to Auburn?
Well, looking at this game, like you said, 2 undefeated teams coming in. You got Ranburn, who's just don't know much about them already. We've looked at their region schedule. We do know both teams have played Reeltown. Ranburn in the regular season during region play, Fife during the second round of the playoffs. Fife just went into Tanner last week, and they imposed their will in the running game. They took over. Stiefel took over. The Ashley kid contributed.
Kilpatrick
got physical there toward the middle point of the ball game, and they ended up, I don't want to say run over a Tanner team, but they took care of business. And here they are again, like they were a year ago, sitting in the state semifinals.
Well, they did what it took as far as the keys that we had laid forth. We said, if they were able to control the line of scrimmage and impose their will, and that's pretty much what they did, and therefore they were able to get the W. Looking at this game, though, I've kind of checked out Ranburn a little bit to give you a little bit of insider on them. It seemed like they have a lot of depth, a lot of kids involved, somewhere around, I think I said 47 kids, which is, it's a pretty big roster for a 2A school. So look for them to be able to stay fresh and maybe match Fife as far as their small army of kids too. So that I don't think that'll be a biggest factor as it was last week versus Tanner. Tanner didn't have quite as many, so I think that kind of hurt them. But as far as the way way Ranburn plays, another running team, they can throw it, but I think they'd rather run it first. Just a lot of outside stuff. Didn't look like they really blocked real well inside, but they tried to get to the outside as much as they possibly could and tried to throw little short intermediate routes as far as the passing game. And then another thing that really stuck out to me about them was the fact that defensively they seemed to really get off their blocks well and get a lot of penetration, which it kind of shows in their region play. They really, I think, only gave up maybe 14 at the most in those region games, which is pretty impressive. But they really tackle well. To me, probably a little bit better than some of these teams around here. They seem like they got to the ball, and if they could get to you, they would put you on the ground pretty good. But can they get physical enough to stop Fife? Maybe for a little bit, but don't expect. I don't see them winning this game.
Well, I don't either. I got Fife going in and beating Ranburn at home, and then going on to the state finals in Auburn. But the thing about when you play Fife, it's all about playing assignment football. Sometimes that gets overlooked. People want to attack that running game, but what you really need to do is sit back and let it develop and then attack it. But we'll see what Ranburn has to do when Fife gets to running downhill towards them.
Well, it's so hard to, as you say, to be able to stand back and kind of be patient as far as defending people. You want to, jump on them, attack, but you can't do that against this type of offense. This type of offense, you got to stretch them out and make them work. And unfortunately, that was one thing that Tanner didn't do a very good job of. But, as far as the battle in the trenches, size-wise, I'd have to give the edge to Fife. Fife should be able to pretty much control them because Ranburn's offensive line didn't look that big.
Yeah, Fife, their defense is playing really well right now. They got some really good linebackers that made a bunch of key tackles last week against Tanner. And the one kid, I can't think of his name, the linebacker.
Dakota Newsom.
Yeah, Newsom. Yeah. He's really playing well. He really sees the ball well where it's at and where it's going, and he flies to the football. And if Ranburn wants to win this ball game, they're going to have to get a block on him, at least get a chip block on him to slow him down enough to where their running backs can get past the line of scrimmage and make something happen in the second and third levels.
Exactly, because these running backs, they're not the quickest bunch. I mean, they're physical runners, but they're just not gonna run away from you. It doesn't seem so. It's going to be very vital for Ranburn's success to be able to stay on those blocks to be able to open up them holes.
Well, and looking down at the South matchup for 2A, you've got Washington County, who is a really, really good football team. And then you got Elba, who is also a really good team that's been here before. They were in the state finals, 3 years ago?
Yeah, they actually and won the state title, went 15-0 and knocked off Coach White and the Rattlers.
But like you said, you've got the buzzsaw in Washington County, and personally, I've got to go Washington County and beating Elba in this game.
So, I mean, if you really think about it, Elba's trying to sandwich the 2 in a row by the Rattlers because they're trying to get, a state title this year in between those. But looking at this game, Washington County really playing well. But Elba, coming off just a nice win over Sweetwater 2 weeks ago, just a very impressive W. And then you got Washington County coming off. I guess you can call them the storybook killers because they just embarrassed a Cinderella type team in Flomaton. And just looking at this game, though, I think D'Anthony, Holcomb, and company are just a little too much for Elba, and Washington County moves on to their 3rd straight final.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, Washington County, I've had them in the finals all year. We talk about the South. This is your dominant team in the South. Like Fife does in the North, this is what they do in the South. So if both these teams make it to the finals, it will be a very interesting matchup come Auburn.
And everybody, and there you have it from Artie and Nikita, breaking down all the semifinal games, 1A through 6A, for this upcoming Friday night. And guys, before we go to our team of the week, let's just kind of look ahead to the 7A game. They didn't play a semifinal game. They went from the second round, I believe it was, pretty much to their semifinal game and went right in, to the state title game to see who gets there. Just looking ahead at that, don't make a pick, just sort of give your perspective of the game, I guess. It's Hoover and Prattville for the first ever 7A state title. Artie, once again, it's Hoover. If you live in the state of Alabama, you know about Hoover and what they've accomplished. Prattville, they're up there, but they're not up there with Hoover. But they are a good team. They knocked them off 1 year, I believe it was, in the state title game. And if I stand corrected, I believe they also knocked them off in a semifinal game to get to the state title game. But just give your point of view for next week and what needs to happen for maybe both schools to win the first ever state championship game.
Well, as you talk about Hoover, to some people outside the state, you might think of vacuum cleaners. But with us in this state, we think about the Hoover Bucks. I mean, this is a dominant dynasty is the word I would use. They just expect to just win, and win some more. And, a disappointing season for them is a loss in that state championship game. So, I mean, they're going to be very disappointed if they get beat. But looking at this Prattville team, I'll be honest with you, I had them out in week 1. But they've found ways to win, and they found ways to beat a good Foley team and beat a really good Central Phoenix team. And somehow, some way, are going to wind up in Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, what better way to kick off the first ever 7A state final with 2 storied 6A teams that just used to dominate 6A when they were there. I mean, you got Hoover, who's borderline a college team. You got Prattville, who's right there under them, and these 2 teams are going to have a knockdown, drag-out, and just try to see who's dominant for the first time in 7A.
And Hoover, you look at the way they played last week. They just pretty much run off the field a good little Gaston City team. So they're riding high coming into this one.
Well, and Prattville, looking at the other end, they were way underrated. Like you said, we both had them going out in the first round, and they just kept winning throughout, and they knocked off Auburn to get to the state finals. But they still got to go through Coach Niblett and the Bucks, and it's going to be a wild, raucous ball game.
Well, already staying on the 7A subject real quick, even though, 1A through 6A, they play week after week in the playoffs, since this is the first ever 7A state title game, and it was the first ever 7A playoffs this year. 7A, these two teams, they get an extra week to prepare, which would be this week, before they have to play their state title game next week. So does that sort of benefit for Prattville because they get that extra week to prepare for such a dominant team in Hoover?
I believe so, and in more ways than one, really. Prattville, I think, really benefits the fact that Hoover's really playing well. So they got to take the week off. Maybe that takes a little bit of their momentum away. And plus, as you say, it gives them just that little bit more time. Maybe they see that one or two little more things that might help them in film study to be able to maybe knock off the Bucks.
Well, too, though, you got to look at it this way. Hoover and Prattville both probably got some players banged up, so that gives them an extra week to heal and to get kind of things back in perspective. But, to me, you're giving Hoover an extra week to prepare for a team. That's like giving Nick Saban an extra week to prepare at Alabama. Coach Nibbett's going to make very sure and take advantage of that week off, and he's going to prepare extra hard, and it's going to be really hard for Prattville to knock off Hoover from their pedestal.
That's a very good point, but, that week off is just that little bit more, could knock Hoover off their timing just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it could, but at the same time, like I said, you give them extra week to prepare, and it could be a really embarrassing ball game for Prattville.
And with that, moving from the 7A subject to our team of the week now, here from PSN, we have chosen the Madison County Tigers. They beat East Limestone last week in the quarterfinals, 28-7 at Madison County. Already, this Madison County team, they're from 5A, Region 7. Sort of a up and down region, I guess. Beat a good East Limestone team last week. They're playing Pleasant Grove this week. They could make it to Auburn. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see what the turnout is. But just talk about, the Tigers and what they've accomplished throughout the playoffs.
Well, they got to be really proud of themselves. As we said earlier, never going this far. I mean, this is, I guess, roughly, just as far as just success goes, it's got to be the best year in their school history. And, to be able to go in and beat a East Limestone team that just had really played well all season long. I mean, not really one game you could say they were off their game. And for however they done it, hats off to Madison County to be able to beat East Limestone.
Yeah, grit and determination, I feel like, is what helped this Madison County team knock off East Limestone, who I believe was undefeated and just was, like you said, dominating everybody. But they got to play at home last week, and I think that benefited them a good bit. East Limestone didn't have to make that far a trip, but it was still probably far enough to throw them off a little bit. But the good thing that helps Madison County this week is that they're playing against another team that's never been this far, so the inexperience factor can kind of be thrown out the window because both teams are at an even playing level.
True, but it makes it that much more interesting because both of these teams are hungry. They're thinking, this might be our only chance, potentially. So you're really wanting to take advantage of this moment. And another thing about Madison County you got to think about it is they beat East Limestone, but in the manner in which they did, 28-7. It's just, to me personally, that was just unthinkable.
Well, against a team that probably averaged at least 28 to 30 points a game, at the very least, I'm talking.
Well, on top of that, East Limestone was really good defensively. I mean, they shut out a really good Mortar Jordan team the week before.
Yeah, but they only beat them, 10-0, so I don't know if the offense got hung up that game and it carried over to this game or whatever, but it just wasn't enough. In Marion County, hats off and congratulations for being the PSN Team of the Week.
And ladies and gentlemen, once again, your Team of the Week, the Madison County Tigers. And moving ahead to our shout-outs, there was just one this week. And Nikita, we will let you do the honors.
That would be the Oak Grove Tigers. They are a 4A school. According to their page, they're the third largest 4A school in the state of Alabama. So we appreciate them following us and keeping us tuned in for all their high school sports needs.
And ladies and gentlemen, there you have it from Artie and Nikita. Once again, another week from 1A through 6A.
Just one more note I want to add, just happy holidays to you, and I hope you have a really good, blessed Thanksgiving, and hopefully you'll tune in again next week and hear us talk about the finals.
Nikita?
One thing I want to add is I want to give everybody an update on our bracket records here. Me and Artie are deadlocked at 133 and 49. And Brock is right behind us at 131 and 51. So we're neck and neck trying to see who's going to win this little bracket challenge. So keep tuned in to see what happens.
And once again, you've heard it from Artie and Nikita. Tune in next week. The state final games will be set and ready to go. We'll break those down for you, along with making our pick for the Prattville and Hoover game for the first ever 7A state title games. And for Artie and Nikita, I'm Brock Bennett. This is PSN Sports Network, and join us again next week.